and I'm extremely thankful for the management of Bharat Mata College for inviting me for this particular workshop, that is webinar. And when I'm talking about research and research publications here, and I'm trying to share my own experience as a researcher the last, you can say around 6 to 7 years down the line after my PhD. And when I'm looking at today's discussion, I'm completely sharing my experience with respect to one of my paper, which recently I got published into, and I got accepted. I got an acceptance from a journal that is an A-star journal, and probably you may wonder actually what do you mean by A-star and all. And the A-star means in the sense, and we actually in management, we look at, there is a classification called as ABDC. I believe all of you are familiar what is ABDC. ABDC is actually an Australian classification, Australian Business School Council classification. And we primarily in IIMs, we primarily look at ABDC or ABS, Association of Business School classification. And we primarily focused on only journals which are listed in ABDC or ABS. And ABDC, the highest ranked journals are actually we call that A-star. A-star is the highest ranking journal. Below that, we can see A, B, C category journals. And similarly in ABS, ABS is nothing but Association of Business School classification. Association of Business School classification. And as per Association of Business School classification, the top tier journal or top ranked journal, they call it as 4-star, 4-star. And 4-star, 4, 3, 2, and so on. And that's a classification. And we in IIM, we primarily look at ABDC and ABS, and we will not look at any other journal classification. And we can look at it, but the problem is that it will not be counted as a publication. So therefore, that's the quality criteria which we generally follow. And here, today's discussion is completely based on my experience. I'm just trying to share my experience as a researcher, and primarily focused on how to write a paper targeting top-tier journals. Targeting top-tier journals. Top-tier in the sense, please remember my discussion is primarily oriented towards management, economics, commerce, and other related disciplines. And if someone is actually into fundamental science, mathematics, and other related disciplines, and sometimes you may feel that it is actually having some kind of disconnect with respect to your area, and I'm extremely sorry for that, but still you can easily connect a lot of other aspects from my discussion. And first of all, I'll look at as a researcher, what would be the starting point of your research. And when I start my research, the first and fundamental issue which I look at is nothing but the idea. Idea is always important thing, a very, very important thing. And you should have a very unique idea to get into very top tier journals. So how do you get the idea? And that is a very, very, very difficult question at the same time. It's a very challenging process of generating the idea or identifying the idea based on which you would like to do research. And it means that idea is actually everything. And everything in the sense, if you have a great idea, definitely your chance of getting into high-ranking journals or highly reputed journals is very high. Therefore, it's very important that you should always search for generating a great idea. And great idea in the sense, sometimes you may feel that as a researcher, I'm getting an idea that is great. So you have to make sure that whatever idea you are getting is great. After reading papers from related areas, in the sense, let's assume that I'd like to do a study on social media research, social media marketing. Let's assume a situation. And if I would like to do a research on social media marketing, the first and foremost thing is that I need to look at the idea, whatever idea I have. Let's assume that I'm looking at social media marketing and social media interactivity, and how social media interactivity influences advertising effectiveness. If that's actually your idea, first and foremost thing it would be, you need to go back to literature. Literature in the sense, you need to look at those papers published in social media marketing. Social media marketing in the sense, you need to look at papers which are already published in very reputed journals, And remember, when you're looking at your idea, most of the people, what they do, they will get an idea, and immediately what they do, they'll start writing their paper. But that is actually a crime. Why? Because when you get an idea, sometimes you are very sure that the idea is great because it is your idea right now. It is your idea right now. Excuse me, 1 minute. Yeah. So when you're looking at your idea, you may feel that the idea is so great because you're not familiar with the literature in this particular area. So my primary task is that when I get an idea or when I get a big idea, so I will go back to literature, databases, from where I'll try to look at journal papers in this particular area, that is social media and social media marketing and all. I'll try to download only very relevant journal papers, very relevant in the sense highly reputed journal papers. For example, if I'm targeting an A-star journal, when I'm targeting an A-star journal, which is actually very highest ranking in ABDC, when I'm trying to look at an A-star journal, remember when I'm looking at my idea, I may have actually a dream project and I would like to publish in an A-star journal. If I'm trying to publish an A-star journal, I have to make sure that whatever actual reading I'm having right now, that should be generated, or that idea should be generated from very top ranked journals. It means that you should not read very lower level journals, very lower level in the sense in ABDC, most of the cases, when I'm looking at A-star journal, I will read only A and A-star papers. I will not read B, C and all, because I know that I'm targeting an A-star paper. When I'm targeting an A-star paper, I need to confirm my idea. When I'm confirmed the idea, my idea should be confirmed. I need to confirm the relevance of the idea after reading related papers in this area. Related papers I will download from only A and A-star journals. I will not even look at B and below. Why? Because I'm very sure that if I read B and C category journals, the quality of the paper, B and C, would be relatively lesser compared to A and A-star. Therefore, generally I will ignore B and C category journals, even though they are actually, some people say that B and C are highly reputed because it's ABDC, but generally I will not look at, because I'm targeting an A-star paper. When I'm targeting an A-star paper, I'm primarily on ABDC A and A-star category journals. I'll read and confirm my idea. That is the first and most important stage. First and most important stage, I told you, is nothing but the idea. So first, you need to get a great idea, and you need to confirm whether the idea is relevant. It's not published so far. It's not published in the sense, sometimes you may get an idea. When you are reading related papers in this area, you can see that the idea is already published in much better form. If it is already published, there is no point in actually looking at your paper. If it is published, you need to think of how you can make this idea is very innovative, means very novel. Because otherwise what you'll do, let's assume a journal, X is a journal, and you got an idea. When I looked at X, there is a paper, it's already published. If you try to submit your paper to X, definitely the editor will come back to you and say that, you look at this paper, it's already published, this idea is already there, and therefore your idea is not very novel, and there is a high chance that you'll get a rejection. So that's what I'm trying to say, that you need to make sure that the idea is novel, idea is relevant, and again, very important thing, it should be executable. Executable in the sense, it should be actionable. Whenever you are getting an idea, you should have to make sure that you can do a research. You can do a research. There is no point in getting an idea and doing something. After some point in time, you are dropping the idea. Therefore, it's very important that it should be actionable idea, very actionable idea. So fundamentally, I'm a believer of idea. So I always try to read papers so that I believe that I can generate very great ideas. So I believe all of you understood the fact that what is the fundamental aspect of very great paper. Fundamental aspect of any great paper is actually very unique, relevant, and executable idea. Very unique idea. It simply means that when I present a paper into a great journal, after reading that journal paper, someone feels that the idea is really great. If someone, after reading my paper, if they feel that the idea is really great, that is actually a very great, actually, recognition for me. Very great recognition. So I believe in that. So I believe all of you understood that, what is the relevance of generating idea, and that idea, most of the cases, generated out of literatures. Most of the cases generated out of literature. Again, sometimes, as an experienced researcher, it will take some time. It will take some time to generate idea. You need to read and read and read, and so that after some point in time, your idea is getting shaped. Your idea is getting shaped, so that whatever idea you get would be great. And therefore, as a beginner, if someone is actually just starting their research, my suggestion to you all is that you start your reading. And when you're starting your reading, and read the papers in detail, in detail. And when you're reading the papers, I'll give you a lot of advantages are there. You know how to learn the art of doing research. You can learn art of doing research from readings, readings from journal paper. And most of the cases in journal papers, if you read, some of the people say that I'm reading books, but that's not most of the cases. It's not relevant. Read only journal papers, and try to give less importance to books, and give more importance to top class journal papers. Make a priority. And let's assume that you are working in actually in a particular area. First and foremost thing would be you should know what are the journals you can properly target, and what are the journals you need to read regularly, and what are the journals you need to target as a researcher in future. So it means that preparing a list of journals, that is also very important. It means that you need to know that what to include and what to exclude. You can't read everything under the sun. Therefore, while looking at make a target, so let's assume that in your area there are around 50 top journals. So in my marketing, if I'm working in social media, I know that there are around 10 to 15 journals regularly publishes social media marketing papers. So what I'll do, I'll read these journals very regularly, and whatever social media marketing or related papers are there, I'll download and try to read the paper, irrespective of whatever idea you have. And after reading 1 or 2 or 3 papers, you will find something different, because the idea is generated out of reading. That will be very unique. So I'm a hardcore believer of generating idea from readings. So you should have a habit of reading papers. And second important advantage of reading paper is that you will understand how to conduct research. And that is very important when you're doing research. How to conduct research. Nobody will come and tell you that please do your research or follow the process this way. But if you read a great paper, you definitely will understand how to conduct my research. So that is very, very important aspect of learning research practice. And third and important issue is that many times as a researcher, you have a lot of confusion about what kind of analysis you can use. And if I use this analysis, whether it's suitable. And what kind of hypothesis I can formulate. How can I present the hypothesis? These are all very fundamental questions. All these things you can learn from reading existing or published papers. Therefore, my recommendation is read papers, generate idea, and learn art of doing research from the readings, and learn how to conduct the research, and learn how to do data analysis. In addition to that, one of the best and most fundamental advantage of reading is that definitely from the reading you will develop actually a dream journal. So when I'm reading a paper from a great journal, I should have some kind of aspiration in the sense I should develop a dream that I need to publish in that journal. When I need to publish in that journal, definitely you should read papers from that. Without reading papers from the particular journal, how do you publish that? Because different journals got different style of presentation and style of articulation and style of acceptance. Actually, some papers, some journals, they won't accept some kind of journal papers. Therefore, I need to know what kind of journal papers they accept, what kind of journals directly cater my needs, and therefore what kind of journals directly I can target. So my suggestion to you, read and target. First, you target journals and to try to focus on specific set of journals and start reading regularly. Make it as a practice. So that's the first and fundamental suggestion to you. So now, and I'll slightly shift my presentation to a different topic. And my topic is that when you're looking at a journal paper, how to prepare a paper. I mean, so that I can discuss all your doubts and how to prepare a paper. And when I'm looking at this particular discussion, I'm trying to share my experience very recently. I mean, I have some of the A-star journal paper, and very recently I got an acceptance from International Journal of Information Management. International Journal of Information Management, they generally publishes papers into marketing, information management, journal management, and related things. So recently, around 1 month back, I got an acceptance into this A-star journal. It's an A-star journal, very top-tier journal with an impact factor of 5+. In your Thomson Reuters impact factor is actually around 5+. So that's a highly reputed journal. I recently got an A star. So I'll share my experience as a researcher and how and what ways actually I targeted so that I got into this journal. So I can share my experience this way.
Sir, shall we present the slide?
And Ajay, there is no slides as such. I'm just trying to show my my system desktop so that they can see and they can understand things.
Okay, sir, they were asked, so it's okay. So when you are live for presentation, please mention so that we can adjust the screen accordingly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. 1 minute. Yes. So one minute. Ajay, is it visible right now? Ajay?
Yes, it is visible.
All right. So can you see this? Is it visible? International Journal of Information Management?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Right. And what I'm ultimately trying to look at is my experience as a researcher. I'm very recent journal publication, and it's actually, just accepted actually. So I'm trying to look at my paper with respect to this journal so that you can understand what way you can proceed further so that you can target these kind of journals and all. This is an A-star journal because I'll show you and how to look at, because this is an ABDC list which I download from internet. So if you type in Google ABDC journal classification or journal ranking, you will be directed to a web page. And from the web page, you can download this Excel sheet. So this is Excel sheet, and as you can see right now, it's an A-star journal, and it's actually published by Elsevier. The publisher is Elsevier. So Ajay, you can see, right? Is it visible right now?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
All right. So now I'm trying to look at my experience from this journal, and here you can see the impact factor of journal is 5.063. That impact factor is given by Clarivate Analytics, and it's a highly reputed journal. And now what I'll do, when I submitted this paper, I got 3 revisions. And we are able to satisfy all the 3 revisions, and ultimately at the end of 3 revisions in the sense, I got 3 review procedure, and from the 3 revisions I am able to satisfy the reviewers very successfully, and that's the reason we are able to get this paper. And I'll show the paper and so that you can see. And this is a paper. Is it visible, Ajay?
Yes, it's visible. Yes, it is visible.
Right. And this is a paper. And when I'm looking at this paper, the first and fundamental issue when I start writing a paper, I told you that I always a hardcore believer of idea, and idea is very important. And when I'm generating this idea, because I got some authors with me, but still, so I was under the impression that, I was actually reading some papers, and after that I got some idea of a concept called as social media interactivity. Social media interactivity was the idea which I got, and after that, I read some of the papers from related journals, and based on that, we developed the idea, and then we thought of looking at some journals, and at that time, I got actually an aspiration. My aspiration was to get into, because I got lot many A and A star, but now I thought of looking at some of the very top tier journals in the world, and as part of that, I am focusing only on A star, and I was looking at ACE, then I thought that it's a social media work, and then which would be the ideal journal. So social media work, when I read some of the papers, I found that one journal. That journal is International Journal of Information Management. That they regularly publish papers related to social media. So what I did.
Excuse me, sir. Can you expand it some more? The zooming, because
Right. Right.
slow. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yes, it's okay now. Thank you.
Right. So then we identify some of the papers from the same journal. I found a lot many papers from the same journal. Then I found that yes, I can easily look at this journal, because this journal right now publishes a lot of social media works, and especially social media marketing. Then we actually decide to go with this particular journal. It means that I got my idea, and my second decision would be which would be the target journal, and that you need to decide in advance. That's what I'm trying to suggest. My suggestion is that once you get an idea, first and most important thing, you should read related works from very top tier journals, including the journal which you are targeting. So it means that when I target journal, I also look at some of the journal papers from the same set of journal. I download, I read the paper. I understood that in my I can look at my idea based on this particular journal. I can develop it. Then we went to the journal. We found that journal is really nice and got very good impact factor. At the same time, a highly reputed journal. So we decided. So we co-authors discuss each other, and finally all the co-authors said that yes, we can. This idea is really great, and we can look at this journal. That's the first and most important decision we did. And remember, so it means that you are writing a paper. You are writing an idea for this journal. It's not like you're writing something for the sake of anyone or any journal. So you should have a very focused journal in your mind, and that is very much important when you're writing a paper, because you can save your time. Sometimes some people start their work, they'll write without an understanding about what journal they are trying to submit. They'll write and they'll complete the work, then they will target the journal. And at the end of the day, if you target the journal, many times, sometimes you may feel that the paper is so lengthy, and the journal accepts only 8,000 words, and your paper is around 12,000 words. Then they will not accept your paper. Now we found that when we are looking at it, we found that generally International Journal of Information Management accept lengthy papers, and they will accept marketing papers, they will accept social media, and lot many papers in social media market they already accepted. And we referred it, and then we decided. That's that. So now next task is, you need to present your idea. You need to present your idea in a way that the editor and the readers of the journal likes. In a way that editor and readers of the journal likes. And then we started doing research during the process. In between, we started our writing. And so first, when I'm looking at the paper, first and foremost thing, I'll start writing the introduction section, because introduction section is the core element of your paper. Why? Because introduction section. So I'll show you in detail so that you can understand. And so the first day one, when I'm starting my writing, so I know that they need a specialized or a specific type of papers. How do you understand from that what kind of journal paper they will accept? And definitely what you can do, and you can go to any journal, whatever may be your journal. You can go to the journal and read and understand the guide for authors. So any journal, the first thing would be get the idea, target the journal, go to the journal web page, read author instructions. So guide for authors, read very carefully, read and understand what kind of writing style they require. So remember, it is very important that you need to, because I told you that I went to the journal, I understand that the journal generally accepts some of the papers. That confirms that my idea is matching with the scope of the journal. That is very important. Some people write some paper and finally they will submit to some journal. They will say that the journal's aims and scope is not matching with the idea presented by the author. In that case, journal will not accept the paper. In my case, I found that my idea is actually exactly matching with journal requirements. Now I need to write according to journal requirements, journal standards. So I went to the journal, I read all the instructions. All the instructions will be provided in the journal web page. You can go and read in detail. And that is a fundamental aspect of, before writing, you need to target that actually. One by one, each and every sentence you read and what they demand. That also you can understand from the published papers of this journal. So I went to some of the published papers of the journal. I understood actually, so what is their requirement and what kind of style of presentation they demand, what is their referencing style, what is actually the presentation styles and all. So I understood that, after that, you need to internalize yourself, you need to discuss with your authors, because sometimes, you'll share the work. So that is sometimes, you may say that I can write the introduction because I am able to write the introduction, that is my idea. And the second author may probably write the literature review part, and third author sometime, write the data analysis part. But still, you need to communicate each other that, so after completing that writing, that is your writing, you need to share with other authors, and you need to make sure that there is a consistency across authors. So sometimes first author will do introduction, after that second author will do literature review, third author will do methodology, and fourth author will do data analysis. But after that, they won't read each other's contributions. It should not happen like that. Everyone should read the complete paper and understand actually that the writing is actually having the consistency. Right, and you need to communicate among all your authors, and you need to interact each other. You need to make sure that there is a consistency in terms of writing, and that is a very important thing. Sometimes when you submit a paper, after reading the paper, the reviewer feel that there are 4 authors. Why? Because there are 4 different style of presentation. That should not happen. Ultimately, you need to make sure that the style of presentation is actually very generic, that is very common, and that is exactly matching with journal requirements. And that you need to understand from the journal. And I mean, my strategy is that target the journal and write your idea, present the idea for the journal. It's not reversed. So every sentence I write for the journal, not for anyone, because I know that journal got some objectives. They have some set of specific audience. That is their requirement, and I will write according to their requirements. That's what I do. So what I did accordingly, I wrote the introduction, because when I look at the introduction part, I just understood that most of the journals, introduction, you need to have primarily 4 important different aspects, 4 to 5 different important aspects. And when you are introducing, so you can see that the introduction starts because my paper is related to social media marketing. So I thought of introducing what's the relevance of social media marketing and social media communication. And you can see that some of the reason was, the first paragraph, I just introduced my area, and in the introduction, I just introduced that what's the relevance of social media marketing, how social media helps in terms of communication. So that's what my introduction is, the introduction first paragraph. And if you read my paper, you can easily understand that, so what I presented there in the first paragraph. Remember, make sure that, sentence should be very simple and easily readable. At the same time, the first para, you need to introduce the topic. When you are introducing your topic, you need to make sure that you are citing very recent works, and recent reports or something like that. Ultimately, the objective of first paragraph is to make sure that you're introducing the area, whatever area you're doing, you're introducing the area. That's it. And after that, and slightly you can come down to your area. And you're talking about social media marketing in general. There is actually a lot of advantages. Companies are doing it. Therefore, marketers are getting a lot of benefit out of social media marketing. Now you need to come down to the fact that how in academics or in research, social media marketing is actually important. And then slightly, I'm just trying to say that slightly. It's not sudden. It will not be a sudden jump. Please don't do that. That from the area you need to slide. You need to slightly come down to your area and what is your idea. And from that topic, I just came down to my area where I introduced my topic. That we call it as positioning your study. What is that? Positioning your study. It means that you need to introduce the research gap. The primary point is that introduction of research gap, and probably if someone is actually having some issues, what I'll do in a Word file, I'll write what are the important aspects in introduction. So I can say that introduction section start with that I'm just saying introduction. Introduction means you need to introduce a topic. Whatever topic is there, you need to introduce the topic. That's the primary, and you need to limit within actually a paragraph. So you need to present into a paragraph and probably around 50 to 100 words max. That is what the style of my presentation. And then after introducing the area, you need to come down to your topic and introduce the so-called research gap. And what is research gap? Research gap is nothing but what is ignored, past literature, or inconsistent. Past. So it means that you need to say that something is ignored or something is missing. So it means that your topic, you need to come down to your topic and you need to introduce your research gap. And research gap generally we introduce research gap in the sense what is actually not done so far, and that can be your research gap. And if it is already done, what is the problem? What is inconsistency there, right? Or what is ignored in the past body of knowledge? It means that would be your research gap. So research gap in the sense, what is your scope and where is your scope actually? So when you're introducing, you need to introduce the fact that there is existed literature gap and nobody looked at this particular area. Therefore, you are trying to look at, and that is what your research gap. Remember, that is actually the second para. And most of the cases, people use a word. People say that, and no studies till date examined anything. And most of the people, they will introduce a research gap as no studies examined. Remember, no studies examined, that is not research gap. A research gap is a gap, it will be backed by evidence. It will be, what is that? What is a research gap? It will be a gap in literature backed by evidence.
Excuse me, sir. If you
Yes.
could increase the font size, the people are asking that to increase the font size so that they can. Please increase the font size.
No, this is the maximum probably, because it'll go out of this system. Oh, okay. Is it okay right now?
It's okay now, sir.
Yes. So here, so gap in literature, and every time when you're introducing gap in literature, you need to present it in such a way that what is missing in literature, and you need to support. You need to support that why this is important, and or you need to say that why addressing this gap is important, right? And that's what I said, backed by evidence. You are trying to say that nobody examined this topic so far in literature, or nobody made an attempt to examine something. You need to say that why this is important. You should support this with evidence. And you need to say that it is important to study this area because of this reason. So that is what I said. Every time, whatever research gap you are presenting, and you should be able to support it with evidence. Then only it become a research gap. That would be the second para. And most of the cases, I'll introduce my research gap in the second para. And in the third para, that is, every time the gap should be backed by evidence. I'll say that as per this theory, and this is very important to examine this topic because of this reason. And the third para, I'll say that, and that depends on you. And you need to read some published papers so that you can understand. In third para, and you need to introduce a fact that, and if you address this topic, if you address this gap, how it adds value to either theory or practice. Right, I believe all of you understood actually. It means in the third paragraph, what you are trying to say, if you address this research gap, how it actually adds value to either theory or practice, or probably both. And some of the cases, some of the research, what they do, they will say that, if you look at here, gap backed by evidence. And here, some of the area, they will introduce their research objectives. So it means that there is a gap, you are backing with evidence. After that, you are introducing research objective. You can introduce research objectives here, just after your research gap. And again, you have to say that if you address this, how it adds value to either theory or both. Remember, that should be within one single paragraph. You should not even elaborate in detail, because this is introduction. This is introduction. Introduction should not elaborate in detail that how it actually adds value. You need to give a very generic overview about your study contribution, right? And it means that paragraph 1, 2, and 2 plus your objective, and this is actually 3. And fourth, you can say that summary about the study. Summary about the study, you need to say that what you are presenting in subsequent sections. What you are presenting? Subsequent section. It means that these are the 4 fundamental aspects that should be presented in the introduction. So introduction should be, you need to introduce a topic, and you need to present your research gap. That should be backed by evidence, followed by your research objectives, and followed by that you need to address this gap, how it actually adds value to theory or practice. You need to give a very brief overview about your study contribution, not in detail. And finally, you need to provide a brief summary about your subsequent presentation. That is what you're presenting in subsequent sections. I believe all of you understood. And these are all always must in the introduction section. So that is very much required. It means that introduction section, again, some of the people, what they do, if we look at my paper, you can see that there is no separate presentation. Rather, in my case, if you look at the paper, I just presented as research questions as such. So after presenting the gap, instead of research objectives, I presented the study aims to follow and answer the following research questions. And so I just presented a research question, because anyway, you always need to look at this way. You need to think about which way you can present your study objectives. So it's not like, every time you need to follow a very standardized style. At different times you can follow a different style of presentation, but still, at least in introduction section, you should have, you need to introduce a topic. You need to come down to your research gap, relevance of the research gap, and then your research objective should be there, and slightly the contribution of the study, and finally chapter summary. Not chapter summary, but the paper summary. So in my case, what I did actually, so I have around 3 to 4 research objectives. So I just made section by section, so that, every time, remember, when you're presenting your research question, there should be a proper research gap. And after, if you look at the paragraph, just before the research question, the reader should understand the relevance of addressing the research question. So remember, a research question is a question always backed by evidence. Why it is important? It is very much important. So in summary, these 4 to 5 important aspects should be presented in any research paper. Introduction, introduce a topic, research gap, your research question, so-called research question, and the contribution of the study. That is must actually. So it means that after reading your study, the reader should understand these aspects. And now, because in my case, I had around 4 different options. And now, in my case, the second section I started with this way. It's called as literature review and hypothesis formulation, because in most of the journal, they have page requirement or page restrictions. So page restrictions. So I can't even give actually very elaborative literature review. So what I decided, I just clubbed my literature review with hypothesis formulation. Literature review plus hypothesis together, I just clubbed together. I just made it as a single section. Under that section, I made different variables which are very relevant to my study. I just clubbed it actually. It means that ultimately I club my literature review with hypothesis formulation. So why I'm doing it? Because I want to save the space, because I can't elaborate in detail, because I have page restrictions, right? And most of the journals accept actually. Sometimes you can even avoid the literature review so that you can mix the literature, whichever literature is there, in the hypothesis formulate section. And if you are trying to present the literature as such, what is the relevance of literature review? I'll tell you. Relevance of literature review is that after reading the literature, the reader should feel that your research questions are relevant. I believe you are getting my point. My point is that the objective of any literature review is to confirm the fact that whatever research questions the author is addressing in his paper is timely and relevant and very unique. So you need to convince the reader, you need to present your literature review in such a way that your research gaps or objectives or research questions are relevant. That's it. So in my case, I have page restrictions. I kept my research questions and research objectives, sorry, my hypothesis and literature review together. I just, at the end of, remember, at the end of every section, you can present your hypothesis. I just clubbed together. You can see, I'll show you in detail. Yes. So it means that if you look at my first hypo, and the first hypo got a logical argument with respect to how this particular hypothesis is relevant. So it means that my research question is there, and based on research question, I'm trying to formulate hypothesis. And before formulating hypothesis, you can see that I clubbed my literature review with my hypothesis formulation. So ultimately, just before hypothesis 1, I just presented the argument which substantiate my hypothesis. I believe you understood what I'm trying to say. So it means that in top journals, every hypothesis should be supported by argument. You should have proper argument to support your research hypothesis. So I just made section by section. So I got 4 different hypotheses. What I did, I made section by section. So first section, I presented hypothesis related to H1. And in that section, you can see, I just presented the logic. The logic, that is theoretical logic, and how this particular hypothesis is relevant, and what is the logic. As you need to present. Similarly, before stating my second hypothesis, I just presented the logic. So I just presented the logic, and ultimately at the end of the section, you can see that these are the logic which I presented. At the end of the section, you can see that I'm just presenting second hypo. Yes. Second and third, because I feel that H2A and H2B, you can name it H3 and H4, it doesn't, or H2 and H3. It doesn't matter actually. It's only, I just made it a sub hypothesis. That's it. But remember, if you look at this argument, whichever I presented actually is giving you a detailed elaboration or detailed justification about these 2 hypotheses. And most of the people, what they do, just simply present the hypothesis. But if you read the hypothesis, there is no proper justification. But remember, top journals need justification. So you need to present that. But again, there is a recommendation. The recommendation, most of the editors recommend that, every hypothesis, if you want to present a single hypothesis, minimum there will be around 200 to 300 word justification for that particular thing should be there just before this hypothesis. I believe you are getting my point. My point is that if you want to write a hypo, try to get the justification from your theory, and based on that, you justify your hypothesis. And after that, I just presented, because remember, I just made section by section, every section I numbered, and that numbering is actually asked for journal guidelines, because the journal, International Journal of Information Management, they demand a specific set of guidelines. And this is my third hypo. Just before that hypothesis, you can see the argument. The argument, after that, at the end of the argument, you are trying to say that, therefore, we hypothesize that. And followed by that, I'm presenting my hypothesis. That's what the style of presentation. And finally, I'm presenting a final set of hypotheses. And in that, I'm just providing the argument which substantiate the hypothesis. At the end of this section, you can see my last set of hypotheses. It means that in my second section, that is literature review and hypothesis, I just presented different set of hypotheses. Every hypothesis supported using existing literature or theory. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say that, yeah, right. And your for section 1, your section 1 would be introduction, and followed by you need to present section 2. Section 2 can be your literature review and hypothesis. And my suggestion to all researchers is that if you feel that your paper is going to be very lengthy, it is better to club. It is better to club your literature review and hypothesis together. And some people, they will not club hypothesis literature together. They'll make another section. What they will do a small literature review, and they'll make hypothesis formulation. So it means that some people, what they'll do, they'll make a separate literature review section, and the third section would be hypothesis formulation. And in the literature review section, what you will do, present your literature. If you're present your literature related to your study, and this literature review should convince reader about the relevance of research gap or question. It means that when you're presenting your literature review, at the end of the day, after reading your literature, the reader should understand the fact that your gap or research question is relevant. So it means that, you should not, some people got a tendency that they will write every literature by literature. Please don't do that. And you need to make a very beautiful summary about the past body of knowledge. And after reading that, the reader should feel that, okay, there is a relevance. There is a need to do a study in this particular area because there is a relevance, right? So, and after that, when you're presenting hypothesis, and what you will do, you can make section by section. So you can present 200 to 300 or 400 words justification, followed by hypothesis. So it means that every hypothesis, an extreme case, you can club hypotheses together. My suggestion is that for every hypothesis, if you want to state a hypo, 200 to 400 or maximum 500 word justification should be there. And that justification in the sense you need to present a logical argument which substantiate the hypothesis. Whatever way you are providing the direction of the hypothesis, you need to provide the justification why there is a relevance. So section by section, you can present the literature. That's what the style of presentation, right? And now the fourth section, it is actually research methodology. There will be research methodology. What is there will be research methodology? Research methodology, you need to say design. What kind of design you are using? Right? Your participant, procedure, right? These three things should be there in your study actually. So it means that in your research methodology, you need to substantiate what kind of design you are applying. Is an experimental design or a cross-sectional study or a survey, and you need to learn what kind of participants and what is the procedure you have applied, and that should be there actually. So if you look at my paper, you can see after hypothesis formulation, you can see that the methodology here, it's an experimental design. So it will be design. And here I'm trying to say what kind of design we have applied. It's an experimental, it's a 2 into 2 into 2 experimental design. And followed by just trying to say there is a concept in experiments called a stimuli selection actually. So in some, if you're doing a survey and all, there is no need for stimuli and you don't need to state it, right? And you need to elaborate in detail actually what you're doing. Remember, you need to know how to summarize all these things. You need to summarize beautifully, right? And you need to summarize, and followed by that, so I'm just clubbing participants and procedure. So it means that what kind of participant you have used and what is the process you have applied, and how process up you applied in the sense how what procedure you have followed to collect data. So here you can see that here in this section talk about what process I have followed, what kind of participants I have, and what is the nature of the participant, and how many participants I have approached and how they actually got the data. So that's what the details in methodology section. So that's what I said. So I'm detailing, and followed by that, you also need to look at the measurement. Measurement in the sense, we are trying to say that you have used a questionnaire. Let's assume you are using a questionnaire. In the questionnaire, what are things you measured? And you need to provide a detailed argument or detailed justification about what kind of measurement you have applied, whether you adopted a scale or you prepared a scale, and how do you measure it? Measured in the sense, so anyway, so you need to measure the study objectives, and by looking at the study objective, what measurement procedure you have applied. And here in the study, I'm trying to say that, so I have adapted the scale. I'm providing a detailed argument about, what kind of scale I have used. And I will not provide all the items in detail. Most of the cases, I want to reduce the space. And therefore, I will not provide all the questions which I use in my study. Sometimes in extreme case, what I will do, I'll provide a separate appendix at the end, which shows actually my questionnaire. So here I will not provide my questionnaire, rather I'll write that, what items I have used, what measurement I have used, and from where I adapted it. So here I mentioned that all the scales used to measure the opposite variables were presented in Appendix B. So it means that I have an appendix. In the appendix, I have provided all the questions related to my study. So that's what generally I do. So I believe all of you understood. Then what is the fourth section? So fourth section is all about research methodology. So ultimately, remember, design, participant, procedure, and measurement should be reflected in research methodology. That is very much important. Very much important. All right. And followed by that, you can present your data analysis. It will be a main section. It will not be a subsection. It will be a main section, right? It will be data analysis. Section 5 generally will be a data analysis. So you can see data analysis and results. So it's an experiment. That's the case. You are providing manipulation check. If you have a subset of analysis, you can provide. If you have test of assumptions there, you need to elaborate what are the test of assumptions you have applied. And you need to provide argument. What are the hypotheses? Because I'm just giving section by section analysis. I'm trying to say that test of hypothesis H1 to H3. I'm trying to say that I have used a Mankova. You used to test this and presenting the results here, right? And now, in most of the journals, what will happen, if you look at, you may have tables, right? And most of the journals, they won't demand that you need to present your table separately. If you look at here, insert table 1 about here. It means that, I have cited a table in this section, but I'm not inserting that table as such in my text. So I'm trying to say that I have a separate file, and separate file would be tables. I just inserted separately. So what you can do generally, you can prepare a separate file. In that file, you need to provide your tables, or you can provide your table at the end of your draft. Don't even insert the tables inside the text. So that is not a general practice. Wherever tables comes, and there you can insert, there you can provide actually an indication that insert table 1 about here, so that the reader or reviewer will understand that there is a table 1 here, and they need to go back to table 1 and read it from there. Most of the journals demand separate tables as a separate file or at the end of the draft. Both are okay. And followed by this, I need to my hypothesis 4A and 4C. My hypothesis 4A and 4C altogether requires a new different analysis. So I'm trying to say it separately, because I found that I need to use 2 different set of analysis here. My hypothesis 1 to 3 requires Mankova, and 4A to 4C requires structural equation modeling kind of thing, and that's the reason I am just using another set of analysis here. I just present it separately and present the results in detail here. And followed by that, after presenting, remember, I got figures also. Figures also you should not insert inside the text, and you need to present a separate file, or you can present at the end of your draft. So wherever figures or tables comes, you can provide an argument, or you can say that insert figure 1 here, because you're trying to indicate the editor or reviewer that I want to insert the figure here, but I'm not doing it here. You can read it from my text that I attach separately or at the end of the text. you're giving an indication. That's the reason. Remember, whenever you are actually referring any tables or figures, it should be cited within the text. It should be cited within the text. That's what. Now, after data analysis, you need to provide discussion. So what is discussion? And in most of the cases, in my case, what I'll do, I'll provide maximum 1 page discussion about the study result. One-page discussion means, remember, discussion of the study result. When you're discussing the study result, you need to provide justification of your study results using past studies in this area. You need to elaborate how your study adds value over existing understanding, right? So it means that 1-page discussion about your study result, 1 page or 1.5 page maximum, and it means that every result should be discussed in detail. When you are discussing these results in detail, you need to support, or you need to say that my study actually found results which is matching with or different from previous study results, and you need to give justification based on existing. You need to make citations here. That is very important. And that is, you need to elaborate how your study, that is, how your study adds value over existing understanding. So that is what discussion. So discussing your results. Remember, discussing your results. Whatever results you found, is it accepted or rejected, or your hypothesis accepted or rejected, you need to say how it actually, your study results are actually concur or actually different from previous understanding, right? And you need to cite, right? That is what the discussion. And most of the cases followed by discussion, what I'll do, I'll make 6.1 a subsection. After discussion, I'll make another subsection called as theoretical contribution. Right? So this is what theoretical contribution is, a subsection after discussion. In that, you need to elaborate how, what are the theoretical contribution of your study in detail. So it will be, the minimum will be around, again, my recommendation is that you need to add 1 page. 1 page theoretical contribution should provide. And followed by that, you need to make another 6.2, that is managerial or practical contribution. So here, how your study provide direction to practice. Again, I request you to provide 1 page. Right? So that is what your 6.2 managerial contribution of your study. And followed by that, my recommendation is that you make 6.3 limitations and directions for future research. It means that in this section, you need to provide what are the major limitations. Remember, major limitation of the study. And remember, you should not provide separate argument for future research direction. Whatever research limitation is there, you need to say that this limitation can be utilized by other researchers so that they can build up their study. So means your research limitation should be directed towards future scope. You need to say that there is a limitation that can be rectified or addressed by future researchers so that it's actually an avenue for future research. So it means that that will be around 500 words. Most of the cases I require a 500 word actually limitation. Very short limitation and direction for future research. Remember, in this section, discussion is so crucial and critical. When you're discussing, discuss only the study result. Please don't go outside your study result. Don't go outside your study. Most of the people, what they will do, they will find out some results, and after that, what they will do, they will go beyond that scope of the study. They will discuss something else. When you are discussing it, don't go outside the scope of the study. Discuss only study result. Try to look at your study result with existing understanding, how your study result converges or diverges with previous understanding. We need to make relevant citations there. And followed by that, you need to say that how your study actually adds value to existing theory or theoretical contribution of your study. And followed by the managerial or practical contribution, how your study actually adds value to practitioner. And finally, you need to say that limitation and direction for future research. At the end of that, some people provide actually a conclusion. That is 7th section. Would be a conclusion. It will be minimum 200 words. Conclusion is what you inferred out of the study. Everything together, you make very beautiful 200 word summary. And for example, I'll show you in my paper what I did actually. So after discussion, if you can see, so I made a discussion. And here you can see that I have cited some papers. There I just indicated how my study, this aligns with limited capacity theory. That it means that I'm trying to say that my study findings are aligned with limited capacity theory, and the results are showing this way. Right? And followed by, remember, you can see the literature supporting discussion. So it means that I'm trying to support my study discussed results in following the study existing understanding or diverging from the existing understanding. I'm just showing how it's different. And almost provided one page, and I just made another section 5.1 theoretical implication. I provided a detail. You can see that the study contributes to marketing communication literature, especially advertising through social media literature in numerous ways. Then I just provide the argument, which actually how first, second, third, and so on. Actually, I just provide almost around one page theoretical, 1.5 page. And followed by that, you can see that I just provided a managerial implication section. And followed by that, and you can see 5.3 is actually limitation, right? Limitation and direction for future research, very short summary. And finally, I just made a conclusion. And conclusion is nothing but what you inferred out of your study. That's it, actually. Don't, some people, what they'll copy paste their abstract with conclusions. Not that. Conclusion about your study, what you inferred out of your study. That's it, actually. Right? What you inferred out of your study, what you inferred out of your study, that is nothing but actually is around 200, max 250 words you need to elaborate, and you need to conclude that. So that would be the end of your study, just concluded with, and finally, followed by that, you can see references. And that is very critical, actually. Most of the people, they will ignore, they will do any kind of style formatting requirements and all. That is very much important, because you need to follow the journal guidelines very strictly. Journal guidelines very strictly, because you need to provide each and every reference in detail, because this journal requires their references in the APA style formatting. And therefore, you need to provide exactly, very meticulously, you need to detail. What are the, whatever actually references you cited in the text should be provided at the end of this particular section called a reference. And that you need to follow the style guidelines as per journal requirements. Whatever journal requirement or journal guideline says, you need to follow exactly as such. You need to provide it as such. So you can see that I just provided my references in detail. It will be in alphabetical order. So I provided in detail. This is actually the style guidelines recommended by the journal, and you can see around 40 to 50 references max. I'll put a maximum of 40. to 50. I'll not even cross 50 references. That's actually a recommendation. And you need to make sure that you are actually having citation from the same journal. That is very much important. It means that whenever you are using or preparing a paper for International Journal Information Management, look at the citation. This citation is exactly from the same journal. You can see a lot many citations from same journal. It shows that your paper is exactly matching with the theme of the journal. Right? Every reference, whatever you cited in the text, you need to provide in detail. That is very much important. And so I just provided the references in detail. Yeah. So followed by that. So what I did, I didn't prepare my tables and figures separately. What I did, I presented my appendix actually. So I have two appendixes here. So I present the appendix A, that is nothing but my stimuli, which I use my study. So I presented the appendix here, followed by appendix B. That is appendix B I mentioned earlier. That appendix B is actually my measurement questions. Remember, don't provide your questionnaire as such and provide a summary of your questionnaire. So relevant questions only. So I provided including the reference list. I provided here. Followed by my table. And table 1, remember my text I mentioned insert table 1 here. My table 1 is here. I just provide very summarized tables. It's not like, I just copy pasted my table from SPSS as such I provided. No, I will not do that. I'll modify the tables. Based on my own, this one I'll prepare. And again, I just presented my figures at the end. And here, if you look at my figures, what I do, I didn't copy pasted my figures from Amos. Amos is a software based on which we do structural equation modeling analysis. What I did actually, I made my own custom-made tables. I just presented my results in separate files here, so that it looked good actually. So therefore, my recommendation is that when you're preparing tables and figures, don't copy paste your tables and figures as such from any software platforms. So what I'll do, you just prepare your own tables and figures. Do it very beautifully, and so that the reader will get an impression about your paper. And otherwise, sometimes, you may get a rejection because of the fact that, you are not giving proper attention to your tables and figures. It's very important. You need to present custom-made tables and figures. So that is what you are looking at a paper, right? So that is all about your paper preparation. That's what I told you. In addition to that, I just started from introduction. So you need to provide your title and try to provide a short title. So I generally prefer in giving my title around 15 to 20 words. 15, that is 15 to 20, max 20 words. I will not even cross that. This title got around 15 words. Exactly 15 words. If you look at that, you can see the 15 words here. So I'll provide an abstract. Most of the cases, my abstract would be maximum. So the demand an abstract will be 200 words. And my abstract is exactly 166 words. So I'll try to limit my abstract between 150 to 200 words. That's what my, most of the cases I'll write my abstract in such a manner I need to present within max 200 and minimum would be 150. So that's the style of presentation. So these are the, and again, that is the front page. Here you need to provide 5 to 6 relevant keywords. 5 to 6 very relevant keywords. That's the style of presentation. So starting from title to abstract to keywords, then you are starting with the introduction section. That's what the presentation style. And again, my recommendation is that you try to complete your paper based on the journal requirement. Some journals demand 8,000 words paper, and if a journal demand 8,000 words paper, don't present actually 13,000 words paper, because it actually they will reject the paper, because 8,000 words, 13,000 words is a huge difference. They're asking 8,000 words, try to submit your paper within 9,000 words. If their journal is demanding around 12,000 words paper, try to complete within 13,000 or 13,500 words. So it means that word restrictions are very much important, and you need to follow journal guidelines very strictly and meticulously, right? And Right now, I believe you can open the question session, and I have something more to discuss with reference to submission aspects, and I'll discuss just after some time. So you can raise questions if you have anything related to paper writing, submission. I'll discuss it detail later. I'll take around 10 to 15 minutes for submission requirements and all. Yes.
Okay, sir. Few of the participants have asked some questions.
Yes.
Sir, Meenu Sharma asked, can you explain more on gap evidence? Gap evidence. Shiva.
Is it visible right now?
1 second, sir. No, you had stopped your screen presenting.
Yes, it's okay. Leave it as well. It is this way. Most of the people, what they do, in the introduction, you need to present your research gaps. And when you're presenting a research gap, people say that, what is their gap? People say that my gap is that no studies has been done in this area so far. That's the gap. So remember, no studies has been done in this area so far. It's not a research gap as such. It look like a research gap. Remember, a gap is always a gap. It is backed by evidence. And when you say that no studies has been done in the past body of knowledge, and past body of knowledge, 1 minute. And you need to explain why there is a need to look at this gap and what's the relevance of doing it. Then only the gap become a research gap. So remember, research gap is a gap which is actually backed by evidence. So you need to.
So you mean that we have to give reference for this kind of things?
You need to justify why there is a need to address this gap, because no studies has been done, and you are trying to say there is a need to address this gap because of this reason. So if
yeah, sir, I hope that is clear. Now we move to the next question by Matthew Abraham, Dr. Matthew Abraham from Pala. He asks, data collection part is very important. He asks that the data collected from a particular area can't be generalized. Some journals reject the paper because of that. So how can we address that issue?
In most of the cases, what people do, they will restrict the study by stating that, we conducted a study from Kerala Ernakulam district.
Yes.
So when you say that Kerala Ernakulam district, you are targeting an international journal, right? When you're targeting international journal, if you say Kerala Ernakulam district, the readers are not interested, right? So what kind of contribution the editor want to make sure that? The editor should make sure that, the readers, they expect something, and therefore the editor should make sure that the papers having that kind of delivery.
So we have to mention it or pan-India, that kind of.
Even sometimes some journal, let's assume that you are targeting an international journal, sometimes if you write even India as such, and they may reject the paper because they feel that, India is one of the country and it's not even generalizable.
Yes.
And because their target audience is international audience, and sometimes, you may say that, you won't even deliberately will ignore actually. You know that you're conducted in India, in Kerala, but you will ignore it because it doesn't matter in this context. And if you try to emphasize more on that, they'll reject it. Because of this particular reason. Because most of the cases, international journal, you need to make sure that your positioning of the study should be a global perspective. Positioning. Yes,
sir. So the one more question came. There is something called theoretical contribution and managerial contribution, which you had mentioned. So they are asked, can you explain with some more examples what can we do? Theoretical contributions.
Okay, let's assume that I'm using ultimately my study contributed to two different set of people. One is how my study adds value to existing understanding, right? And your study should have some kind of contribution to the field of inquiry. For example, if I'm doing social media communication is actually a field of, it's a discipline, right? So it's an area, right? So in this area, my study should contribute. Is it so?
Yes.
Yes. At the same time, there are marketers or managers who are actually, they are practitioners. And they are practicing in social media communication. Therefore, I should need to say that, my study adds value to theory, that is existing literature, in this way. You can easily say that I conducted actually a study where I studied social media interactivity. And this is the first time a study has been conducted in social media interactivity. Therefore, this is actually unique insights to social media communication literature. right?
Okay, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
similarly, I'm trying to say that in addition to this theoretical contribution, I would like to say that this study can also be used by marketers who are actually practitioners. They can look at my study, they can devise their social media communication so that better communication effectiveness can be made.
Yes, sir. One more question raised regarding this area itself. There is an area called analytical framework. What is your comment on that kind of things in paper?
Analytical framework in the sense, is it related to data analysis or something like that?
Analytical findings or contribution you can make into the study. Some journals give.
Generally, in top journals, most of the top journals in management, they expect theoretical. Mostly, they expect practical contribution. In management,
not analytical part.
No, because we don't want to contribute in the field of data analytics.
Okay.
Rather, we are giving something or value to existing understanding, that is to theory,
Yes.
and also to practice. So these are the two sets of contribution most of the top tier journal expects.
And sir, one of the respondents had asked about Clairvoyant analysis. What do you have?
Clairvoyant analytics.
Yes.
Clairvoyant analytics, right? And the Clairvoyant analytics is actually a ranking and rating agency.
Okay.
And supported by Thomson Reuters.
So journals listed in this kind of area will be rated good.
I'll tell you. Previously, it's known as Thomson Reuters journal ranking. Thomson Reuters journal ranking, and they used to provide previously Thomson Reuters. They used to provide impact factor.
Yes.
So-called impact factor. Impact factor is nothing but that's a trustworthy, list where you can see the scientific impact of journals. In journal publication, scientific impact in the sense in terms of citations.
Then few are asking about Web of Science.
Let's wait. Now, recently, instead of Thomson Reuters, they renamed it. Thomson Reuters renamed their actually ranking and listing an impact factor. Previously, it was known as Thomson Reuters impact factor. Right now, they call it as Clairvoyant Analytics impact factor.
Yes. Okay.
Previously, it was Thomson Reuters. Now, right now, Clairvoyant Analytics. They are providing impact factor. Impact factor in the sense scientific impact. That is actually supported by, you can say, Thomson Reuters. Thomson Reuters and Web of Science. Web of Science is part of Thomson Reuters.
Yeah, there is a question there. Can you highlight about randomized control technique?
Randomized control technique is part of actually an experimental design in which, let's assume that you have two groups. There are two groups and you're looking at an analysis where you're group 1 and group 2, and in which you are allocating your sample randomly to the groups. In which one group would be a control, one group will be experimental group.
Yeah. And another question was whether conceptual framework and study of the study and the background of the study are same.
No. We won't write actually the background of the study. That's what I told you. There will be a style guideline. Most of the cases, journal writing is just like a religion. Yeah. What I said actually, what is a religion? We have some common set of accepted practices and norms. And if you write something different, if you write in your own way, sometimes journal editors, they will not accept. If you say that this is a background of the study is exactly equal to a theoretical framework, they will not accept. They want actually theoretical framework mean theoretical framework or conceptual framework.
That's very clear on that. And right. Sir, is it mandated to have theoretical contribution for every study?
It is not necessary, but it is not necessary. But again, you need to look at this way. When you are looking at something in the field of social media, let's assume I'm doing social media marketing. I should presume some contribution with respect to existing understanding. Okay. And I need to add some value to academics, right? Is it so?
Yes, sure. That's
sure. Because without theoretical contribution, definitely there will not be practical contribution.
Yes. And one more area, key area asked by a person by Nimmi is that how to prepare a systematic literature review and how many reviews shall be quoted?
Systematic literature review, that's a very emerging field of presenting literature reviews. Okay, and there are a lot of systematic literature review papers. They can read it, but I'll give you some recommendations right now. Systematic literature review, you need to look at previously, but there are a lot of recommendations. You need to look at previously published papers. they need to decide what is the inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. Generally, my recommendation is that when they are preparing literature review, that is systematic literature review, 60 to 100 papers is actually sufficient.
Sufficient 60 to 100 papers. Yeah,
don't even put too many because it's very difficult to get into systematic literature review.
Yes, yes. Okay. Then, and another one is, can you suggest some online plagiarism softwares available?
Online, I don't know, but we generally use a paid one, that is Turnitin actually.
Turnitin.
And my suggestion is that don't even look at online and all. If some of your friends or someone is working somewhere, you can give to them. You can send to them and ask them that, can you do a favor? Can you check the plagiarism for me? That is first thing. And second thing would be, if you are not able to access some of the platforms from the day one when you write, make sure that everything you are following, you are writing your own words without losing the meaning of this particular text. And there is nothing is actually paraphrasing or something like that as such. And systematically, if you do your writing, definitely there will not be any plagiarism, and you don't need to depend on any software.
Sorry, and another question: what is the difference between SCI and ESCI by Senthil Kumar?
That is, SCI is called a Science Citation Index. Okay.
And do we have any? I'll
tell you. I told you that Thomson Reuters is a company, and Thomson Reuters is a company, and they have actually a list of journals, indexing services. It's like, ISI standard, right? ISI,
yes,
what is it? It's a quality standard, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Similarly, in journals, we have two different quality standard, top quality standard. One is by Scopus. Another one is, we call it as Web of Science. Scopus and Web of Science are two different agencies. And Web of Science provides actually an indexing system for science journal that's called a Science Citation Index. And social science, they call it as Social Science Citation Index, SSCI.
Yes, yes.
And now SCI Science for Science Journal and SSCI for Social Science Journals. Okay, and we generally, social scientists generally look at SSCI, and that is an indexing service. You are giving admission to 30 students to a class. So what you will do, you actually also have some waiting in students, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you will select 40 students. Instead of 30, you will select 40, and 10 people will be on waiting list. Right? And yes, now sir, that journal, we call it as expanded SCI. So that 10 journal will put in actually in borderline. So, but they will be part of this, but it will be a part of an elaborating list. It will be part of their SSCI, but originally 30 journals are there, or 30 students are here, but 10 are actually under wait list.
Under waiting list, yes, yes.
Kind of.
Yeah. So these are the few questions asked. I hope we can end the question answer session.
And I have something more to do.
Yeah.
I'll take around 10 to 15 minutes so that I'll complete. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So far we understood, what are the important aspects you need to focus while preparing the paper. In addition to that, you also need to look at some other aspects during the submission. And during the submission, when I prepare a paper, I have some list of files. And you need to focus, because that is very much important, looking at list of files. For example, I'm trying to show the list of files which this is my paper. I have first file would be my paper without author details. Right? This is another paper.
Okay. Sir, can you share the screen, sir? If it
you can see right now? Oh,
no,
right.
No,
1 minute.
Yes, now it's okay, sir.
Right, wait. So you can see right now, is it?
Yes, sir.
So I'm trying to look at what are the files which you require during the time of submission. Okay, so during the time of submission, you need to prepare 3 to 4 different set of files. 3 to 4 different set of files. One file will be a file without author information. Let's assume this is my paper. In this paper, there is no author details. Is any author details are there? Nothing is there. Is it so? There is no other details. This is a paper without other detail, that is a separate file. And in addition to that, you can see I have prepared a separate file that is with figures. There is nothing in that, only figure. There is another file, it's called as tables. Is anything else is there? Nothing, only tables. This is another paper, that's the reason you are not able to connect with the previous paper. This is another paper. It's only table, means there is a separate file with tables alone, there is a separate file with figures alone, there is a separate file with only my main text. There is no other information, right? And in addition to that, I'll also prepare a separate file that is a title page, right? So you can see the title page with the title, all the detail one by one, right? So you can see the details in date. So it means that is called a title page. In title page, you can't even reveal any other information, rather only title with other details in detail. Other details in details, in detail. Now, in addition to that, I also need another important information that is called as cover letter. That is called as cover letter. And cover letter I am addressing to the editor of the journal. And here I need to say, in cover letter, I need to give actually a very brief summary about my paper. What is the uniqueness of my paper? So here I'm just providing uniqueness of my paper here, because it actually, the cover letter goes to the editor. How my paper is unique, right? So I'm just trying to say that how my paper is unique, and also giving a confirmation that I confirm that the manuscript has not been published elsewhere and not currently under consideration by any other journal. That is actually very important cover letter. You need to write that. And you need to write a beautiful cover letter with, again, the other details and the corresponding author, right? And this is very much important while preparing your manuscript. So it means that what I'm trying to say that you need to prepare the file separately. Your other details should be present in a separate file. We call it as title page. Your figure should be prepared separately. That should be separate, or you can also present at the end of your manuscript. Both are okay. And you also need to prepare your table separately, or you can present at the end of your page. That is also okay. You also need to prepare a title page and cover letter, right? That's what the files you require for submissions. And all the submissions generally we will do through a journal submission page, because most of the journals there is a concept called as Manuscript Central. Manuscript Central, you can create your account using your Gmail ID or your institutional email ID. You can create an account. In that account, if you look at, you can see almost all the submissions and revisions. So this is my page of this journal, International Journal of Information Management. Here you can see that in the page you can see your paper status. And this one you can need to go to the page in detail, Manuscript Central. You need to register using your email ID. And then once you get into, and most of the journal accept or look at review through online. You don't need to submit your paper through offline. You need to submit only through online. When you submit your paper, it will go for review. So the first it will go for editorial check, then it will go for editor. And if editor is happy with your paper, they will send it for review. There will be minimum 3 reviewers. It will go for minimum, good journal will go for minimum 3 rounds of review. So in my case, you can see, so there are around, it went for around 4 rounds of review. So you can see the letter that is, so I got actually first request for revise the paper around 26 March, second is actually May, and again immediately we submitted the paper, and these are actually the status of revision. And finally, after 4 rounds of review, they accepted. Remember, if the editor is not happy with your paper, in between, they will reject your paper, so that you will get a rejection. That's the process of journal publication. So, but ultimately, when you want to submit to any journal, and you should have minimum 3 to 4 set of different files, and you need to be very, very specific in all these cases. And especially cover letter, and you need to prepare a beautiful cover letter detailing the uniqueness of the study, and also need to confirm that your study not submitted anywhere for publication or under review. And that is very important while publishing or submitting your paper to anywhere, right? And I believe this much is sufficient. And if you have any more questions related to that, you can ask right now. Yes. Any questions?